Roger Ebert was one of our nation's most beloved film critics. With his partner Gene Siskel, Roger took film criticism from the pages of newspapers and into our living rooms with the television show At the Movies. Throughout his life, Roger shared his love of film, not only by conveying what makes a good movie, but which films were his favorites. This is not a show about those movies. This is a show about the movies Roger loathed, the films he despised, the movies he absolutely hated, movies like Silent Hill. On this episode of Does This Movie Suck? Hello friends and welcome to the show. This is our journey through Roger Ebert's 2007 book, Your Movie Sucks. This week we're exploring the 2006 film Silent Hill that's starring Radha Mitchell, Sean Bean, Laurie Holden, and directed by Christoph Gans. I've played a lot of video games, but I've never played any of the Silent Hill games. I'm kind of a newbie to this world. My theory about video game movies is it should be accessible to gamers and non-gamers alike. So I should still be able to enjoy this movie, right? Let's find out. Let's start with our blurb check, where we check the pull quotes from Silent Hill's DVD box to see if they've been taken horribly out of context. Right there at the top of the box, Silent Hill will shatter your senses and leave you breathless. First things first, and you probably noticed this quote is not attributed to anyone. I looked at every corner of this box. No name, no news agency, it's not there. I'm digressing, but that's really shady, movie studio. At least tell me who wrote the quote so I can make a decision for myself. I'm led to think this isn't a real quote. I thought the studio pulled this out of thin air, but then I did my research, and this quote came from Brian Tallarico. And for reasons you'll see in a moment, I really hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Brian wrote this review for UGO.com. Rotten Tomatoes says it was a fresh review, but when you click to read the full article, you get a 404 error. It turns out that UGO isn't a thing anymore, which I didn't know. The company changed hands a few times and shut down operations in early 2013. Apparently their website is still up, but it's broken, and no one works there to fix it. But that wouldn't be the end of Mr. Tallarico's career. He's still very active reviewing movies, and he's now the managing editor of RogerEbert.com. Hello, sir. I really hope I pronounced your name correctly. But with the link being broken as it is, and while Rotten Tomatoes says that he liked the film, the quote they use on the site is pretty telling. He writes, "Silent Hill starts out at point A and then goes so quickly, loudly, and visually over the top that it flies completely off the rails into its own glorious weirdness." So it sounds like he enjoyed the film, but only out of pure camp and spectacle. I'm guessing that the movie studio wanted a positive blurb, and that's all. So with that, let's dig into Silent Hill, a movie with a 29% rating on that Rotten Tomatoes tomato meter. To be completely honest, I had no idea how to present Silent Hill. This was a hard episode to write because, as you'll see, the movie's pretty curiously weird. It's not bad enough to get angry about, it's also not good enough to rave about. It's a movie that just simply exists. The movie's also unnecessarily complicated. It took me at least 2 passes to figure out what was happening in the film, and then another week to figure out how to explain it. It seems that Roger had the same problem too. He writes, "Not only can I not describe the plot of this movie, but I have the feeling the last scene reverses half of what I thought I knew, or didn't know." I understand completely, but after having watched the movie twice, I think I came up with a game plan. I'm going to start with the basic premise of the film. As the film begins, Rose and Christopher DeSalva are looking for their adopted daughter, Sharon. Rose is played by Radha Mitchell, and Christopher is played by Sean Bean, who, despite this close call, doesn't die in this film. Sean Bean always dies. I'm already frustrated with you, movie. Rose finds Sharon at the side of a cliff. Sharon is having visions of a burning fire and a ghostly face. As Sharon begins to pass out, Rose saves her. Hey, that's the name of the movie! It's also the name of a ghost town in West Virginia. Rose decides to take Sharon to Silent Hill in an attempt to figure out why she's sleepwalking. She does this despite Christopher's frantic phone calls. I'm already on Christopher's side. If your daughter sleepwalks to the edge of a cliff and calls out the name of an abandoned town where a coal fire is still raging underneath the surface, my call is to don't go to the abandoned town. But Rose goes anyway, despite Christopher's warnings and nearly everyone on the way denying Silent Hill exists. It's at this point that I'm going to break Silent Hill into its 2 main storylines. We're first going to examine Rose and her journey to and through Silent Hill, and then we'll rewind the film and we'll look at Christopher's journey to find Rose. First, Rose's story. At this rest stop, Rose finds something disturbing.
Why'd you change your pictures?
I didn't. Mommy?
You can't remember.
No.
So definitely keep driving towards the abandoned creepy town that's making your daughter draw disturbing pictures. Here we meet motorcycle officer Sybil Bennett. She's played by Laurie Holden. She's dressed more like a strip club's idea of a motorcycle cop than an actual police officer. Sybil finds the entire situation curious, so she pulls Rose over.
Keep your seatbelt fastened, honey.
I don't understand. Why would Rose just drive away like that? Up until this point, no one's told her that going to Silent Hill is illegal. They've actually told her it's impossible.
Road don't go through no more.
For all Rose knows, when she gets pulled over, Silent Hill is an impossibly accessed, creepy, burning, abandoned town. And now she's running away from a police officer to get there for some reason. So Rose runs from our motorcycle cop and takes the exit towards Silent Hill. She even drives through a chain link fence. Again, why the big rush from the police? So maybe this isn't the best idea, Rose. When the radio blows out your eardrums in a horror movie, you turn around. Anybody who's seen a horror movie ever is gonna know what happens next. Okay, great. End of movie. So the question remains, does this movie suck? Oh, it's not over. Ugh. Rose wakes up after the accident to find Sharon missing, so she heads into the nearest town to try to find her. Hey, that's the name of the movie! By the way, that snow, it's not snow, it's ashes. But by all means, continue to the deserted town with the fire below its surface that's raining ash onto every inch of the ground. At this point, I'll agree with what Roger wrote about the set design and cinematography of this film. The look of this film is superb. It's outstanding how beautiful this movie is at times. The amount of time spent on set design is pretty remarkable. Roger even goes so far to mention some of the production crew by name. So from this point of the film, which is about 15 minutes in, to the hour-and-a-half mark, Rose's story follows a pretty strict pattern. She's given a clue, she follows that clue to a place, something creepy happens at that place which results in her next clue, which leads her to her next place. Wash and repeat. Rose is led into the heart of Silent Hill by a small child she thinks is Sharon. It's not, by the way, in case you've never seen a horror movie before. Rose is led down a dark and creepy corridor when sirens go off and the city gets dark. Silent Hill, the movie, and the city have some pretty strict rules as to when scary things are about to happen. They're announced with a horn or with electrical interference. Rose wanders into a corridor with some chain link fencing where she meets Sid Wilson from Slipknot. And then, behind you, Rose. Rose. Get away, Rose. Run away. That's a good Rose. Rose gets away and the baby demon thingies disintegrate. Rose wakes up and makes her way further into the town where she finds a cliff to nowhere. That's not normal. And finally, Rose happens upon another person.
I don't know what's happening. Do you know what's going on here?
No, I really don't. This woman looks as though she's straight from a horror movie, but Rose speaks to her as if they've met on the street and everything is normal. Beautiful day we're having. It's a little ashy, though. This is the first of two women Rose will meet on her journey through the town of Silent Hill. Both women are single mothers who have lost their daughters. Remember that, I'll come back to that at some point. Until then, this lady seems to think that Sharon is her daughter.
She's mine.
It's mine. It's mine.
It's mine.
Get,
It's mine!
get out!
Finally, Rose acts like a normal person and gets the rock out of there. Rose returns to her car, finds one of Sharon's drawings of a school, she tries to make a phone call, and oh, looky there, it's Officer Sybil. Rose gets arrested and Sybil looks to take her out of town. Rose and Sybil find that the bridge into Silent Hill is out. Sybil's radio and Rose's cell phone go wacky and they're confronted with another monstrosity.
Stop!
Bang bang, that one's dead, but in the chaos, Rose runs away and using the picture Sharon drew, she finds the school. Inside the school, Rose finds a flashlight and the camera finds some religion. It's not the first time, it won't be the last. While Rose is investigating the school, she's confronted by some monsters with a bird. But we know they're not monsters because we didn't hear the alarm. This is what happens when movies have clearly defined scare rules. In a classroom, Rose finds fresh handprints on a desk and some backstory about a witch. Rose is then interrupted by Sharon/not Sharon, whom Rose chases to a creepy bathroom. Does anything good ever come out of horror movie bathrooms? There's always a killer behind the door. Maybe this movie will be different. I'm not taking that dare at all. But Rose does because it's a horror movie, and that'll be a clue to send her on to her next place because storyline. Rose heads on her way, and oh yeah, she's still being chased. She locks herself behind the sturdiest rotting door of all time, and uh-oh. Okay, movie, now we're getting somewhere. Rose and Sybil escape the pyramid dude's reach and wait out the clock. They use the clue they found to discover another location, another mother with a lost daughter, and a secret room in a hotel. If it seems like I'm rushing through this, it's because I am. Rose enters the secret room and chases Sharon/not Sharon to the top floor.
Oh my God. You could be her twin.
Look at me. I'm burning.
That turns out to be a vision because that's something Rose can do now, I guess. The new mother Rose and Sybil have befriended explains that the religious imagery they've been seeing in the town is the symbol of the town's church. They decide to head to said church. As the birds go crazy, the alarm sounds, and darkness falls. Once at the church, Silent Hill's townspeople are rushing inside for safety. Both mothers we've met along the way beg Rose and Sybil not to go into that church, but they decide, understandably, to head inside for safety because the monsters are arriving. Well, the church is actually a good point to stop Rose's story for now because it's the point in the movie where Christopher's story stops being a thing and the movie becomes entirely about Rose. So let's rewind the movie and let's see what Christopher's been doing this entire time. Christopher is trying to find Rose, but only succeeding in discovering massive amounts of exposition, which is largely inconsequential to the festivities.
Actually, she was heading for this place, Silent Hill. How do I get there? You don't.
Just like his wife, Christopher keeps heading to Silent Hill regardless of what the townspeople tell him to do. He gets to the bridge to the town, but he finds police blocking his path. But they're willing to help him search for Rose. At this point, you've probably noticed it's sunny but raining where Christopher is, and dark and ashy where Rose is. Where Christopher is, the bridge is intact, and where Rose is, the bridge is out. I wonder if this will come into play later. Spoiler alert, it will. A police officer takes Chris into town, telling him stories about the supposed coal fire below their feet while looking for Rose. Remember the scenes where Rose ran and hid from the pyramid head and the creepy guy in the bathroom? These scenes are actually all cross-cut with Christopher looking for Rose in the exact same places where Rose is currently being hunted. It's a bit of cool storytelling. It also nails down the dual dimension aspect of the story. The police tell Chris that they'll continue to look for Rose, but in the meantime, Christopher decides to break into a records office to find out what really happened in Silent Hill. Is there really a coal fire, or is it something more sinister? Through all of the city's records, Chris knows exactly which file holds the exposition he needs to get to his next location. This box contains a picture of Sharon, or not Sharon, it's a girl named A. Gillespie. Chris heads to the orphanage where he and Rose got Sharon. The nun isn't at all happy to see him, and Chris gets arrested but finds out that the girl in the picture died in the fire because the police just tell him this info. So that's Christopher's story. As I told you, it's a large amount of exposition. And as you'll see, because of a bout of exposition later in the film, his story is completely unnecessary. When we left Rose and Sybil, they were just getting cozy in the church. After a short bit of awkwardness,
Witches! You sent away the witches!
Rose has a meeting with Christabella, who is the head of the church. Rose wants the church to help retrieve Sharon.
Only the demon knows where she is.
Then tell me, where do I find this demon?
Nothing good ever comes from the phrase, "Where do I find this demon?" Christabella and her goons, along with Sybil and Rose, head to an abandoned building where Rose is told to memorize a map to where the demon is hiding. Oh, 2006, before smartphones. Now Rose could just take a picture of the map. Christabella's goons, who were the birdmen from earlier by the way, open up the elevator to the demon, but in the process, Christabella discovers Rose's locket and the picture of Sharon, who looks like someone Christabella knows.
Witch! Her child's the likeness of Alessa!
Sybil sends Rose towards the demon, staying to fight off Christabella and her goons. This goes pretty poorly for Sybil. Rose makes it to the bottom floor and makes her way through what turns out to be a creepy hospital, complete with nurses. Okay, that's disturbing. These nurses supposedly react to light, but like most of the scary aspects of this film, it doesn't last very long. It's only 2 minutes and 12 seconds to be exact. Rose makes her way through these nurses. Of all the horror elements of this film, I found this one to be the most disappointing. Danger that might move at any moment's notice is something I find truly terrifying. Rose has to make her way through this maze, but not only does she do so with ease, the nurses actually don't have clearly defined rules as to when they can move. Sometimes it's light, sometimes it's noise. Come on, movie! And now it's flashback time. As Rose enters the demon's domain, we're treated to what's actually happening in Silent Hill, which I'll now blast through as quickly as possible. There was once a girl named Alyssa who looked a lot like Sharon. Alyssa was bullied at school because her classmates thought she was a witch, and that was because she didn't have a dad. Alyssa hides in this bathroom where it's implied she was sexually abused by the janitor. Christabella and the members of the church decide to burn Alyssa as a witch, but that goes poorly. Alyssa survives the fire and is put into the hospital where her hate for the people of Silent Hill grows and grows until Alyssa makes a deal with the demon. Under the terms and conditions of the deal, the demon traps the people of Silent Hill in Alyssa's dream world forever and ever. It's at this point that Rose meets the demon, who's taken the form of a little girl because, of course it has. The demon explains Sharon's origins.
She's not your child. She's hers. The little girl is what's left of her goodness.
Oh God, movie, you can't be saying what I think you're saying. You're telling me Sharon doesn't have a father or a mother because she's the literal manifestation of Alyssa's remaining goodness? I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. This can't be what you're telling me, movie.
We hid her in safety.
Yep, that's what you're saying. You're saying that she's an orphan because she's the literal manifestation of Alyssa's remaining goodness. That's how you want to explain this movie. Alright, what else do you have? What does the demon and Alyssa want?
All we ask for is satisfaction.
Satisfaction.
Revenge.
The demon tells Rose that the church's blind conviction repels her from entering. Ugh. But if the demon can enter Rose, then Rose can enter the church. Whatever. Meanwhile, the church finds Sharon and the members get ready for a burning. First on the docket, the beaten remains of Sybil. She's so far away, the church really doesn't know how geometry works and... I'm pretty sure that's not how fire works. Sharon's the next to burn, but the church is interrupted by Rose.
Burn me? That's your answer. Burn anything you're afraid of. Burn anything you can't control.
Rose hits on one of Christabella's character faults. The history of cinema is littered with bad guys whose misinterpretation of the Bible has created a church of believers that do horrible things. But Christabella doesn't even try to connect her burn the world philosophy to the Bible. She's not an effective villain because of that. I think of Marcia Gay Harden's character in The Mist. Now that was a character that knew how to take the Bible out of context.
You are alone in this limbo. And God is not here.
Ugh, so Rose is dead. Well, not really. She bleeds out a lot. Like, a lot. And that blood opens a gateway to where Alyssa and the demon are waiting to enact their revenge. And then a bloodbath commences. Barbed wire seems to be Alyssa's weapon of choice, for some reason. The movie never really explains it, just don't think about it too much. Don't worry, if you're watching Silent Hill to feed your bloodlust, it takes a while to get there, but it pays off pretty well. If you don't think about the plot too much, just don't think about the plot. Rose and Sharon pass out during the bloodbath. They wake to an empty church and they're able to leave Silent Hill. They call Chris, but they're unable to reach him. When the characters arrive home, we find Chris in one dimension, Rose and Sharon in another, and that's how the film ends. So what have we learned here? I've learned I don't understand why Rose and Sharon are in a different world. And why is Sybil there? She has no connection to Alyssa. Why all of a sudden has Silent Hill's dream world expanded to the real world? And why would the movie do this at all, only to get a bittersweet ending? I don't want to rewrite every movie I watch on this show, especially ones that are written by Roger Avery. If that name doesn't ring a bell, here's a few movies that might. Pulp Fiction, Killing Zoe, Reservoir Dogs. He's a friend of Quentin Tarantino's, and he co-wrote a lot of Tarantino's early films. When I think back on Silent Hill, it's the structure that works against the film. There's a lot of Rose going from point A to point B. She goes to point A, she finds something that leads her to point B. Would the film be all that different if Sharon, or not Sharon as the case may be, drew a picture of the church to begin with? What if that church was on the other side of town from where Rose and Sybil started? And the entire movie is them making their way through the city, avoiding monsters the entire time, not just when the horn sounds. Not only did I just simplify the story, I also shortened it considerably. This movie is over 2 hours long, and a lot of that wasted time is spent with Sean Bean's character, Christopher. What if Sean Bean's character died before our story, or if he didn't exist at all? Does Chris learn anything in his investigation that we don't learn in the ending exposition? Not really. Wouldn't Rose being a single mother explain away her frantic nature in getting to Silent Hill and her determination in getting Sharon back? Furthermore, the church's big problem is with fatherless daughters. Doesn't Sharon go against the grain? Plus, Sean Bean dies. Everything's right in the cinematic world. What this film needed was simplification. It's too complicated for its own good, and it ends up not making a lot of sense on the first pass. It makes a lot more sense on the second pass, but who wants to watch a movie like this twice? Someone with a lot of time on his hands, I guess. So I guess that answers the question, does this movie suck? Yeah, it's kind of like having a multi-million-dollar house built on a 2-cent foundation. And with that, we play around with the Netflix algorithm and see what kind of movie they recommend with my 5-star review of Silent Hill. Nothing again? This is 2 in a row where Netflix is just giving up on me. I'm a lost cause. If you like these crappy movies, then you'll like nothing else that we have for you. And with that, we close the case on Silent Hill. Let's mark it off the list. I look forward to more discussion in the comments. And I'll see you next time when we ask the question, does this movie suck? Thanks for watching.